What's going on, everyone? So obviously Matisse Thybulle is kind of the main talking point as far as a wing that the Lakers could bring in, or that guard wing that can defend 1 through 3, right? Slot in. He's cheap enough to where, you can go and acquire him. I mean, you could technically just swap Gabe Vincent for him. I don't think that the Blazers would do that, but technically you could, right? He's making $11.5 million, so he's cheap enough for the Lakers to go and pull that off. There's talks about Robert Williams, right? If you could get a Matisse Thybulle and a Robert Williams in the deal, then yeah, I think you should go do that. And I do think that those two kind of combined, if healthy, that's the key, if healthy, could raise the ceiling enough for the Lakers to where they could potentially be in title contention. However, another guy that I really want to see the Lakers look into, and the Chicago Bulls are still supposedly shopping him and are still willing to trade him, primarily because he's going to be needing a new contract next year. And so I imagine they're going to have to pay Josh Giddey still working that out. And, they're going to have a couple other guys that are going to be due and need to be paid. So they're probably going to want to get off of this guy, and that is Ayo Dosunmu. I've talked about Ayo Dosunmu for a couple years now at this point, and he's a guy that I think can give you a lot of the same things. He's not looked at as like the high-end defensive player that Matisse Thybulle is, right? Matisse Thybulle, I mean, he's literally built a reputation and profile as like this just defensive stopper. But Ayo Dosunmu, he's younger. He's 25. He won't be 26 till the middle of next season. He's also a guy that is capable of still defending 1 through 3. He doesn't have the 6'11 wingspan. I mean, both guys are 6'5, but Matisse Thybulle, he has that 6'11 wingspan, which really helps him a lot and makes him able to be as elite as he is. But Ayo Dosunmu has a 6'8.5 wingspan. So it's not like he's, one of those guys, you see guys that are like, 6'5 with like a 6'5 or 6'6 wingspan. No, he has a long wingspan too that would allow him to defend 1 through 3 as well. But he's also better at a lot of other things. Right? Matisse Thybulle, there's questions about his shooting. There's also questions about his health, where Ayo's just been a healthier player. He's a guy that can still shoot the ball, play on ball, play off ball, but he also can operate as your playmaker. Right? He's a guy that can go out there and make some assists. He averaged just under 5 assists last year, shot 50% from the floor. He was a 12, 4, and 5 guy on 50% from the floor. Right? He's a guy that could come in, slot in, play 1 through 3 for you, be that point of attack guy, be that athletic player. He's a guy that can apply rim pressure, stop on a dime, be a legit 3-level scorer, but make plays for others, as well as play off ball. He's a guy that I would really consider looking at, and he's making little over $7 million, so he's even cheaper than Matisse Thybulle. Both guys are, going into free agency next year, so both guys, if they work out, you're going to have to pay anyway. But I'd rather pay an Ayo Dosunmu and see if, it depends on obviously what he wants in his contract. But I mean, worst case scenario, if he wants too much and it's just not worth it, then you can always work out a sign and trade or whatever. And then if he doesn't get that on the open market, then he'd be restricted. You can just match whatever it is. Somebody offers him, say, $15 million and he signs it, you just match it and boom, there you go. So Lakers would still have some control over, Ayo if he was to want X amount of money or whatever. You can kind of play the waiting game, play the patient game, see if somebody offers it. If they don't, then just be like, okay, this is what you get. Maybe you're signing him to a shorter term deal or whatever, right? So I do think that there's flexibility in even bringing in an Ayo Dosunmu, where Matisse Thybulle, he could just leave. Right? Like if he wants $20 million a year and you're not willing to give that to him, and you just go, okay, fine, I'll just go somewhere else and end up leaving. You don't have the opportunity to match it and figure it out later, right? So I just think the Lakers would have some control. Like I said, I mean, last year Ayo Dosunmu only played 46 games, which obviously is a bit of a concern. But you look at every season before that, he played 76 games, 80 games, and 77 games. So was last year an outlier, or was it something that like we need to keep an eye on? I don't know, right? But to me, I also look at Ayo, like, obviously if you can package it together, get, a Patrick Williams or something like that, right? Like if you can make some type of move, some type of trade to where you can get several players, kind of stack some things, then cool. But even if not, like I'd love it. Can you turn Ayo Dosunmu and free up maybe some salary space? Right? So could you maybe do something where you're doing because the problem is you have to get to 7 million, which is easy to get to, but the Lakers can't get to it exact, right? Chicago, you'd either have to expand the trade to where you're getting other guys besides Ayo, or Chicago's willing to take on some salary, which either way could benefit the Lakers, right? Imagine if you could just do something where, you're doing say a Gabe Vincent and a Dalton Connect trade. Or if they don't want a Gabe Vincent, maybe they'd be interested in a Maxi Kleber, especially if they're considering buying out a Nikola Vucevic, right? It'd be like, hey, you could get somebody that could kind of replace his floor spacing and his shooting, cheaper and an expiring contract. Maybe it'd be easier for you to move him at the trade deadline or something because it's $11 million as opposed to, $20 million or whatever Nikola Vucevic is. So maybe you could do something where you're giving, hey, we'll give you a Dalton Connect. We'll give you a Maxi Kleber. Maybe you're throwing in your second round pick or something like that. Because, what are the offers that Ayo's receiving? We haven't really heard a lot of news about that, right? They want a first for Ayo, but they've wanted a first for every player. They wanted a first for Nikola Vucevic, right? And you've seen the bad decision-making that Chicago has done where they've waited too long to get off of guys. And it's like, you're in this position, based on your guard rotation, Ayo could end up being the odd man out, just not because he's not good enough, but just because, again, they have so many guys already. And it's just like, are you going to run that risk again and then pay him, or are you going to lose him for nothing? Wouldn't you rather have a Dalton Connect that makes more sense based on what you need on this team, as well as, you bring in a Maxi Kleber that can give you some flexibility. Maybe you throw in a second and a couple pick swaps or something, right? If I'm the Lakers, I'm not giving up my first unless you can do a more expanded trade. Now, if you could do Ayo and like a Patrick Williams and, maybe a couple other players or pieces, whatever, right? Then yeah, maybe I would consider that. They like, could you get like a Smith, like that, something like that could potentially be a better factor for the Lakers. If you can expand the trade, then maybe there would be a sort of package to where it's like, okay, this makes sense for the Lakers to maybe pull off, right? And give up the first and give up whatever else, right? But Ayo by himself, I wouldn't hate it if the Lakers gave up a first, but ideally I would try to keep it and kind of, force the Bulls' hand, right? Like, hey, look at what you've done the last few years because you overvalued guys, and kind of see if you can kind of play into that a little bit. But to me, again, if you could get like a Jalen Smith, right, and Ayo Dosunmu, then it would be hard to say no to that. And Jalen Smith's making $8.5 million. So between him and Ayo, you're talking, let's call it 15 or 17 million, roughly, give or take. Could you maybe do something where, maybe you're doing a, Gabe Vincent, a Dalton Connect, and a Maxi Kleber for a Smith and a Dosunmu, right? Maybe you're giving up your first, but you're getting two young players on top of opening up a roster spot and also freeing up the salary in order to fill said roster spot. And you'd have enough salary to fill that 15th spot if you wanted to. Maybe then at that point, maybe you could go to, the Jonathan Kuminga thing still hasn't been worked out yet with Chicago. Maybe you can go to DeAnthony Melton and you can go to Al Horford, two guys that are expected to sign with Golden State but they're waiting on Jonathan Kuminga, right? Maybe you can go to them and be like, hey, look, 2 open roster spots, right? 2 spots that need to be filled, and we have the money right now to sign both of you. Do you want to wait around for the Golden State Warriors, or do you want to just come here now and sign up and then, let them figure it out? And they waited too long. Imagine if you could, would the first be, if you could give up what you need to give up, would Dalton Connect and the first be worth a DeAnthony Melton, Al Horford, Jalen Smith, and Ayo Dosunmu? Yes. I think Ayo Dosunmu and Jalen Smith alone would be worth the first, plus Dalton Connect, if you could get that. Because you're getting a young kind of power forward center, and you're getting a young versatile guard that can defend 1 through 3, slot in 1 through 3, and you're opening up roster spots and clearing salary. Right? So if you could pull something like that off, then I'd be more inclined to maybe do something like that. But Ayo Dosunmu, period, I just think he's a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Lakers. You kind of look at his production last year. Like I said, played 46 games, started in 26, averaged 30 minutes per game, 9.8 attempts from the field, shot 49.2% from the floor. He shot 32.8% from three-point range on 4 attempts, which was not great. However, he did shoot the previous year on 4 attempts, so the same amount of attempts, almost 41% from three-point range, right? He is a career 36% three-point shooter. So is that something that maybe, again, you'd be slaughtered alongside Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves? The quality of looks that he would get are just much better. 2-point range. He shot 61.2% from 2-point range on 5.7 attempts. EFG of 56.1%. Free throw shooting. He's a career 77% free throw shooter. Last year, he shot 78.5%. The 2 years previous, he was actually 80% or better. Rebounding, 3.5 rebounds, including a full offensive rebound. He averaged 4.5 assists, a steal, half a block, and 12.3 points per game. If you look at his per 36, which is only like 6 minutes more than what he played, it's not going to be anything crazy, but he would have been a 15-point, 4 rebound, 5 assists, 1 steal, and half a block guy. So just slight uptick in the points. If you can get Ayo, I think you go get Ayo, right? I'd prefer him even over Matisse Thybulle. I just think the upside with him is higher. Matisse Thybulle is probably the better defensive player, but both guys kind of questions about their shooting. But I just think that Ayo Dosunmu, he's younger and just does more. He can provide more for this team. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. If you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.